I'm a firm believer, like, food is medicine, and in the world that we live in, supplementation is very, very helpful and important. So, like, getting as much as you can from food, and where you don't have access, supplementing as needed, using tests to guide you if you can. If you can grow your own food, like, amazing. There's a lot of interesting research that's showing if your gut health is out of balance or if your nutrient levels are low, it's actually going to worsen perimenopause symptoms and just menopause in general. But a model that I recommend people trying to follow about 80% of the time is like our version of the balance plate, which is aiming to get about half your plate vegetables, even if it's like lower variety. Still getting that amount of fiber, and the volume can increase just your intake of those different nutrients called phytonutrients.
Sweet. Well, yeah, thank you so much for connecting. And I always like to start by asking, where in the world are you? And did you get a chance to surf today?
Yeah, I am in San Diego, California. No, unfortunately not. I'm a single animal mom this week, and so I didn't have enough time to surf this morning. But yeah, that's where I am.
A single animal mom, meaning that you have pets that must be cared for, that you sacrificed your surfing to do.
Yes, Wednesdays are usually my partner's days, and usually by surfing days, so it's okay. He'll get me back when he's home. But yeah, we actually have four animals. I have a dog, two cats, and a rabbit. So yeah, I joke it's really our herding dog that needs lots of attention and lots of walking time and playtime. So yeah.
And if it had been your day to go surfing, what spot I mean, you don't have to like divulge any super secret spots, but where do you tend to go when you have time to surf in that zone?
Yeah, usually during the week I just go to Avalanche. I'm in Ocean Beach in San Diego, so South San Diego. Yeah, I love that spot. It's like, and it's also maybe like a 2-minute drive for me. So yeah, it's a fun, like punchy little beach break, but can also be nice and slow and loggy on the right day. So yeah, I love it.
Wow, it's funny. I have spent very little time in Ocean Beach. I did spend some time in Mission Beach, which is right there, but I almost never drove and surfed on the other side of things. So that is a secret
Oh,
spot
nice.
to me, and we'll just leave it that way.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun to think that there are so many surf spots in San Diego that even like I went to college in San Diego. I lived there for a year not too long ago, and still there's like more spots to be discovered. It's kind of cool. Well, I guess it was Emma Castillo that connected us, that thought
Mm-hmm.
that you would be an awesome person to talk about nutrition and all of the things that you do there. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you do and how you got into doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm a integrative and functional dietitian, and my practice is C and Spruce Nutrition. I've been a dietitian for almost 9 years now, which is crazy. Practice has been around for about 7, and we mainly work with women that just don't feel well in their bodies, that have been told by doctors that everything looks normal if they get lab work done. There's a really, really big population of people who fit into the like, well, we can't really help you category, but they're not feeling well. And so we basically work with people to kind of figure out what is out of balance in their body so we can tailor more of a like a personalized nutrition plan for them, but also one that feels practical. I think there's a lot out there on everything on social media about, I don't know, just like needing to be overly restrictive or like fad dieting. And our goal is to try to like cut through the noise of all of that and really just help people figure out how to eat in a way that feels good for them. Yeah, and I originally got into this just dealing with honestly a lot of my own health issues and found that I just wasn't feeling better kind of going the conventional approach. It ended up being on, I think it was like 5 different meds when I was 19, which like that's like all very common these days. And it really just it took being introduced to functional medicine a couple different ways for me to realize that there was a different approach where I didn't have to just take a bunch of medications and I could actually feel better and heal myself with nutrition and natural agents, using supplements, habit change, stuff like that. And once I could really experience that for myself and feel that this also didn't need to be really challenging. Like I just had to address the root causes. Felt super inspired to do that as a career and help other people do the same.
You talk a little bit more about your whatever you feel comfortable sharing about your
Oh,
personal story. I mean, being
yeah.
so young and having being taking a bunch of medications, like what did you experience?
Yeah. So it honestly started, and I didn't really realize I was dealing with some kind of symptoms necessarily because we didn't really talk about it, but I started out dealing with just a lot of gut issues as a kid. And again, I didn't really know things were abnormal. I really didn't realize that like I had straight up IBS until college when I learned about like what IBS was. I'm like, oh good, I'm studying nutrition now. Like now I know what this is. So that was really funny to understand that. But it was lots of gut issues. And then it turned into like I was diagnosed with PCOS. I had really bad acne as a teenager, was put on birth control within like a year of getting my period kind of thing. So just like shutting everything down. And then that later progressed. And I know now that I think a lot of this was stemming from digestive imbalance and like nutrient depletion and just like not getting enough of what I needed. But that all progressed to mental health stuff, ADHD, depression, really low energy, and that was, like, kind of the worst of it was early college years, and again, kind of up until that point, it was just like just, like, every couple years, like, "Oh, okay, here's a medication for this, like, here's a medication for this." And, so that was a bit of, like, the actual symptoms that I was dealing with, and again, the medications would help a little bit, but it wasn't really solving anything, and it didn't feel great to, like, not be figuring out what was going on and to be relying on those. And it wasn't until, actually, again, like I mentioned, I found out about functional medicine a couple of different ways. One way was actually when I was going through a pretty difficult time in my life, and my family was dealing with quite a lot of stress because one of my family members was actually dealing with a pretty significant alcohol addiction. And he was actually down here in San Diego at a rehab facility. And I remember going down to visit him. I was actually going to UC Santa Cruz with Emma at the time, and, remember driving down to visit and, was just, like, so grateful that they were finally getting support. But it was a stressful time. I also just remember being like, "Wow, this is an amazing facility, like, what a cool place to potentially work." And I remember meeting actually the staff nutritionist, and his name was Johnny, he was, like, surfer guy, we're bonding over surfing, and I'm like, "Wow, this is a cool gig, like, maybe I wanna do something like this." And he said, "If you're at all interested in functional medicine and nutrition, or just nutrition in general, look into this specific area because," and this was like, I don't know, maybe like 17 years ago at the time, but it was like pretty new. Like people hadn't really heard about functional stuff and functional medicine and nutrition. And he said, if you're at all interested, this is addressing root causes. It's personalizing recommendations, and it's really like the future of medicine and nutrition. And what he was doing at the time was creating these anti-inflammatory meal plans for the residents there because, this was a treatment center. And it was the first time I had heard anyone talking about the connection between, gut health and inflammation, and mental health conditions and addiction. And that was absolutely fascinating to me. And I'm like, okay, there's something here. But when he was talking about, like, address root causes, personalizing, it's like, okay, that's very intuitive, like, that should be what is done, right? Like, don't do all doctors do that kind of thing? And, as I was, like, driving home back to Santa Cruz, I'm like, "Obviously not. I'm 19 years old, I'm on, like, 5 different meds. It's not, like, solving the problem." And so it kind of clicked for me at that moment that, like, that was something I wanted to pursue. It was just super fascinating for me, and, like, how cool would it be to kinda figure out my stuff, help other people, dealing with other health issues. So that's kind of what set me on my path. I was really sad because I had to transfer from Santa Cruz. I loved being there, but transferred to Davis to get a nutrition degree because I didn't have a degree there. Yeah, and then that actually ended up, leading me to Seattle. During that time, that's when I finally found some practitioners that could help me, and, like, functional providers that really understood, how to investigate root causes and got off the meds I was initially on. And yeah, was just feeling so much better. And I think like with the shift of not dealing with like really low energy, lots of gut issues, depression, like lots of ADHD, I could really focus on like what do I want to create in my life? And that ended up being my practice. Like I was a dietitian for a few years before that, but I really do think that like feeling better in my body definitely allowed me to pursue that. So that's the long version. Yeah, and that's why I'm
Well,
here.
thanks for sharing. I mean, yeah, I think about like the average college kid, go off to college, you're suddenly having to fend for yourself as far as meals go, especially if you were lucky enough to have a family where mom or dad cooked dinner. And I know my eating choices in college were not the best and
Yeah.
maybe probably don't have a lot of extra money as well. So the household of surfer girls that I lived with, we would have ramen night, and that was about it. So it's interesting that I think that knowledge just isn't out there because most of us were just focusing on like if I look healthy and I have enough energy to surf, then I'm good, but not making that connection between gut health and emotional well-being.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was interesting though, because like early on it like that was really when I was starting to identify. I remember one of the first times was I did a half marathon freshman year in college, and it was like, oh, if I eat differently, I'm gonna feel differently and I'm gonna like be able to feel properly. And I actually like I was starting to shift my habits to like a more healthy way of eating just because I was dealing with so many symptoms, but totally, like, I was still eating like crap, a lot of the time too, but it was like I was first starting to realize, like, the connection. So yeah. So yeah, it was interesting though.
How does it work now then? It seems like if somebody was interested in looking at like what they're doing, what do you actually test people?
Yeah, so it really depends on what their biggest frustrations are with their health and like what kinds of symptoms they're dealing with. But usually we like to start with a test of some kind. Let's just say, someone's dealing with lower energy or some digestive symptoms like bloating or I don't know, constipation, loose stool, something like that. I might recommend doing a nutrient profile. That's something they do at home that looks at, like, their vitamins and minerals and tells us what their body needs. Um, Not because, like, that's what we're going to rely on for our whole plan, but it's more, let's just cut through the guesswork and figure out what someone needs, while we're also kind of getting the backstory and, like, okay, why could you maybe be needing more nutrients and what you're able to get from food. So, we like to get the ball rolling with that.
So how do you actually test it?
Yeah.
You mentioned that you test them at home and you
Yeah.
see what nutrients, but what are you actually testing?
Yeah, so we're looking at the test that we use actually looks at something called organic acids, and it's a really accurate way of assessing nutrient status. So it's actually looking to see are nutrients getting into the cells, and it's looking at like the specific steps in someone's biochemistry, and that can give us insight into what someone needs. So what's getting into the cell? Is it being used properly? So we're looking at organic acids is the name. So versus going in and getting your blood drawn by your doctor. Maybe they'll look at 3 different nutrients. Maybe it's like B12 or vitamin D or I don't know, maybe folate or something like that. That type of test is just looking at what you're absorbing over the last like 3 days, and it's also not looking at what's getting into the cells. It's also not looking at the active form of the nutrients. So the test that we use just tends to be a lot more accurate to figure out like what
But what
someone needs
you use? Is it a
from a
blood
standpoint.
test? Is it a stool test? Like what how are you actually testing?
Urine and blood spot. Sometimes we also do blood draw. It just depends on like if we're doing a higher tier test or lower. But yeah, it's usually a mix of blood and urine.
Okay. So first you would test that, and then with that information, you make some recommendations and then test
Mhm.
again, or
Yep, exactly. So we are still doing again the backstory and looking into like what root causes could be feeding into their symptoms. And then when we get the testing, it's usually how do we tailor the foods that we're recommending, supplements we might recommend, or any habits that are going to support them. And we do that together in a way that feels really practical for someone, where it's not like they have to do a full overhaul. But yeah, it's usually focusing on foods and supplements when it comes to the nutrient test, especially. Mhm.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I think thinking about like myself and noticing, like, do you notice a change as, I am 46, so, well, I will be soon.
Mhm.
And it's funny, I've been like at rounding up and then I had to check myself and be like, I'm not actually 46 yet. I have a few months to go. But noticing that like hormones are shifting and my
Mhm.
metabolism is shifting. And is that something that you factor in?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I still always recommend like, and also I didn't answer your question before. We do end up retesting down the road. We usually recommend giving it like 3 months, but we're doing a lot of other things outside of just that one test. But yeah, as far as hormones go, and also just like as our bodies are moving through this world, like as we're all getting older, things change. There's more stress on our bodies over time. And so that definitely can increase our need for specific nutrients. Definitely, there's a big hormone component, right? Like, definitely that stage two perimenopause is happening. Like, lots of things are in flux. We do actually like to do hormone testing too. However, we like to lay the groundwork because there's a lot of interesting research that's showing if your gut health is out of balance or if your nutrient levels are low, it's actually going to worsen perimenopause symptoms and just menopause in general. Just because, like, if your body doesn't have those foundations solid, it's going to make everything else out of balance. So yeah, so we like to work on like digestive health nutrients, but definitely hormones can play a big role in a lot of symptoms, and we can also do testing for that too.
Yeah, that's cool. Um, and then what do you recommend for people that live so far from good grocery stores? Speaking for myself here.
Oh, yeah, that's hard. That's a hard one. I think it's just like you just have to do your best with what you have access to, right? And I think like any color is going to be beneficial. Any like, fruit or vegetable you can get your hands on. I mean, I'm a firm believer like food is medicine. And in the world that we live in, supplementation is very, very helpful and important. So, like, getting as much as you can from food and where you don't have access, supplementing as needed, using tests to guide you if you can. I mean, again, I love fresh things and whenever you can, if you can grow your own food, like amazing. It really depends on the climate that you're in. That's awesome. I do sometimes recommend like a greens powder or something if like the volume of greens or veggies isn't as much as we would like. So yeah, like doing your best, maybe growing your own food, but then supplementing as needed is usually what I recommend.
And what do you do when you travel? When you go on, like, say you're going to go on a surf trip for a couple of weeks, do you just say, whatever, I'm on my surf trip, or do you bring a bunch of stuff with you? How do you handle it?
If the girls that I was just on a trip with end up listening to this, they'll laugh because yes, I come very well equipped. Mostly supplements for like immune support and gut support. I really just do my best with like grabbing whatever fresh thing I can at whatever restaurant. We were just in Saladita recently, and like there's plenty of options to get like some fresh stuff. But from a supplement standpoint, I definitely come well equipped with like preventative gut support, enzymes. I'm the one that's like handing out everyone their enzymes at dinner, kind of friend on a surf trip, or like immune support as well, just for prevention. So yeah, I definitely come with my mini pharmacy, but from a food standpoint, I just get whatever fresh things I can.
So, what would be the top? Like, is it very individual, or if you were to like pass it out to your whole gang of surf girls, like, what
Mhm.
would be like your top three things that you would bring with you on a surf trip?
Mm, I would probably say probiotic. And it is a little bit more personalized, but there's a couple probiotics that I use. Probiotic, usually digestive enzyme, and then a multivitamin if I had to pick 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is a digestive enzyme? What is that?
So it's basically a complex. It can vary a little bit, but it's basically just giving your body a boost. So we naturally produce digestive enzymes from our pancreas. And if we're eating meals that maybe are a little bit different or fattier or just, and it's typically like eating out in general, I recommend someone take like some kind of digestive support. So there can be a couple different complexes, but usually it's a mix of enzymes to help you break down protein, fats, and carbohydrates a little bit better. So again, just kind of see it as like giving your gut a little bit of a boost. Yes, and it can be really helpful, honestly, with like rich meals too.
And is that mostly for somebody who doesn't eat like that regularly, or if you are eating that type of food regular? Like, just let's say you live in Southern California and you love Mexican food and you're like eating the chips and salsa and burritos on the regular, and then you go to Mexico and you're eating the same thing. Although, of course, actual Mexican food is a little different than California Mexican food, but it's not like a big difference. Like, would that still apply? Or is it more for people who are like doing a good job of following instructions and eating clean at home? So then when they encounter food in Mexico, it's like totally different?
Yeah, good question. It's like it's more so if a meal is bigger than you would typically eat, or again, maybe has more fat or more carbohydrate, or just like it's typically like bigger or has different ingredients than your stomach is used to. That's where I would generally recommend, okay, maybe it's not an enzyme for everyone, but something really gentle is like digestive bitters. It's just kind of like turning up the volume on your own digestive juices that you need to break down the food. So it really just depends on like how big the meal is compared to your normal. However, if someone's like only eating out and like only eating Mexican food, like they probably need a little bit more gut support if they're doing that on the regular. But it really, really does depend on the person. Like we do stool testing a lot, which is not the most fun test to do, but it's very, very helpful to like figure out what someone needs. For example, there's like a specific marker we can see if someone is producing enough enzymes, and a lot of the times, like, I test people and we wouldn't really expect things to look off, but their enzyme production is a little lower than we would like. And so that would be a person where I'm like, even with your meals at home, I would want you to take your enzymes. Doing other things, of course, but like when eating out, you're getting your burrito, you're getting whatever you're eating in Mexico, I'd probably want you to take like an extra enzyme or two because it's bigger than what your body's used to.
Right on. That makes sense. I love Mexican food. I'm like one of those that I mean, I make burritos myself at home, and it's like a burrito could just be like a nice healthy protein and some good like guacamole with lots
Mhm.
of tomatoes and jalapenos and onion and then wrapped in a tortilla, and it's like, okay, a burrito can look a lot of different ways
Mhm.
versus just like the actual like down and dirty like grease
Yeah.
grease bomb that you get in Mexico, which I do so very much miss. But I notice now that I haven't lived in California for a while that when I'm making my burritos at home and I have this like nostalgic feeling for like a greasy burrito, and then I go and have one and just feel horrible afterwards. It's like, oh yeah, it's not doesn't taste quite as good as I remember it.
Yeah, but you just need your enzymes. That's the solution.
So
No, it's
you
like
what you're saying is if I go with the enzymes, then I'm good. I can eat all the Mexican food I can handle? Question mark?
I wish that were the case. But it definitely helps, I would say, for sure. But yeah, I know it's so good. I miss them so much. I thought I had celiac for a long time. I'm definitely super sensitive to gluten, but I got to have like a really fun gluten trial for like a month to confirm celiac disease. When I was here, it was like 6 months ago, and I got to, like, finally have, like, a California burrito and have, like, the bagels and everything, and it was so fun, but also I was like, "Yeah, no, I feel absolutely terrible." And that was, like, even still taking, like, some enzymes and stuff.
Which I think that is so weird because I was having this conversation with an amiga who actually it was interesting because when she sent us, we anybody that signs up for a retreat, we ask them about their, their dietary restrictions or requirements. If
Mhm,
it's an allergy, like how extreme is it? Like, is it just that you prefer to avoid gluten because it doesn't make you feel great? But
mhm,
you could have a little bit, or is it that, like, if you get, like, a grain of gluten on your plate, like, you're gonna have an allergy emergency, so, like, let us know,
mhm.
and this woman had said that she was not how did she phrase it? It was something like she was suspected celiac, but not diagnosed, and so I was, like, asking her questions about that just because 'cause I'm out of my own curiosity. I was like, "Okay, what does that mean?" And she was talking about how to, like, properly get diagnosed as celiac, how you have to eat gluten every day for a month, which to me seems like crazy. Like, if you are having enough of a negative reaction to gluten that you suspect that you might be celiac, to then say, "Okay, you have to eat it for every day for a month," seems, like, so wrong. Like, isn't that, like, dangerous for people?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know, looking back on even my trial, I was like, "Was this really worth it?" Because it really screwed with me, and I, like, kind of knew that was gonna happen, like, this is what I do for a living, but I mean, for people who have really severe reactions, I mean, it's just not even worth it. You are doing more harm than good, and that's, like, what we do not wanna do as healthcare practitioners, right? Like, that's the first thing, do no harm. But yeah, I think, like, the reason why it can be helpful is just because it really helps you know, like, when you're going on the trip or someone asks, like, "Is this an allergy? How severe is this?" You know what you need to be doing and you know what you need to say, but also more importantly at home, if someone else is having gluten, you can kind of know, like, how diligent do I need to be with cross-contamination? Because someone with celiac can still get very damaged from that exposure. Um, and not necessarily have a really big reaction. So anyways, like, that's the value of knowing, but it is kind of crazy. It's like, you don't wanna put someone through that if it's okay with them just to, like, be really diligent with it. But gluten's everywhere, so it's kind of hard to avoid too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely the challenge that I have had when it comes to diet stuff at home is that if it was just me cooking for just myself and I were to decide to do something differently, like it would be relatively easy. But I
Mhm.
live in a house with my husband and my two kids, and it's so hard to like make a separate meal or like, oh, you're not really hungry and I don't want this to go to waste, so I'll just eat it. Like I notice
Right.
that it impacts how I eat because of that. Like even if it's like something that I know I probably shouldn't eat, but I really want, and if I just don't have it in the house, it's fine. But if I'm making it for everyone and then I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just have a little bit. And then you're like, the more you go down that path, it makes it harder and harder. So did you have suggestions for people like that are having to navigate trying to eat differently in a household of children and men?
Yes, I know it's so hard. I work with so many moms too, and I hear this all the time where they're just like, "I just, like, have a little snack with, like, when my kids are having a snack," and it's super common. I mean, I think my biggest recommendation is like, you don't need to have everyone eat the way you're eating, but if you can have lots of options that are good for everyone and are nourishing your body and everyone else's, like, of course, there's going to be exceptions, but also with kiddos, like, again, this is just one example I use just because I hear it a lot. I know you mentioned it too, is like having things that, like, if you do snack on their stuff, it's still supporting your body too. Um, so that's really my main recommendation, and then also just, like, mindfulness and making sure you're feeding yourself. I hear this a lot, with moms especially where it's like, "Oh, I, like, skip breakfast," or I don't know, "I just get hungry and then I start munching on my kids' stuff." And just, like, still giving yourself the structure of, the 3 meals a day and, like, having some nice and, like, still fun snacks that you can grab if your kids are snacking or someone else is snacking. So those would be my main recommendations. Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, easy to say. I feel like in some ways, like eating with the kids, like as far as like the regularity of the eating makes it easier. Like I notice when the kids aren't around that I just eat less because I like don't feel like I have to make food, you know, like when the kids are around, it's like, okay, we have to have breakfast. Like they have to
Yeah.
get up and they're hungry. So, and if they don't eat breakfast, then they're gonna have a meltdown. So I got to
Mhm.
make them breakfast. And like, oh my goodness, it's lunchtime, you know, and it's like it becomes more of a production. But I feel like when it's just me, then it also is easy to be like lazy and like, you know, I'm just like, I'm not really that hungry. So I'm busy. I'm taking advantage of the kids aren't here and I'm gonna get all this work done. And I
Yeah.
cannot be
Yeah.
bothered to take a break and go like chop a bunch of things to make for myself, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, totally, yeah, you're not alone with that at all, I get that a lot.
Real problems. So how was your surf trip to Saladito? Did you get good waves when you were there?
Yes, yes, it was so fun. Yeah. Yeah, I knew this was gonna happen, but, like, got super excited, did, like, the, 2 to 3 session days, the first couple of days when it was tiny, and then swell picked up towards the end of the week. But, yeah, it was maybe, like, 6 to 8 for at least, like, 2 to 3 days, just, like, prime, and it was nice because by that point, we kind of got the spot pretty well dialed and, like, the people that were there for the week, like, who you could maybe take off like, who wasn't gonna make it, and, like, it really felt good to get the spot dialed in really well, and it was fun, just because we were in a spot that was, like, right on the point. I mean, we literally just, like, walked out to it, and we were around, like, the different restaurants right there, but, yeah, it was great. We also got some fun video, I was able to switch up a bunch of different boards and, like, try out a few different long boards, and, I actually, like, hadn't surfed a mid-length before, which is so funny to me because like, I need to have one being in San Diego now. I just, like in Seattle, I was basically surfing, like, 2 different boards, because I wasn't honestly going a ton. But it was really fun. Got to surf like a really I think it was like a 7, 8 like pintail. It was like a bing pintail. Super, super fun. Just caught everything. Like it felt like a log. I could get into anything I wanted. And then finally, like on one of the bigger days, dropped down to like a I don't know, a 6'3" quad or something, and it was like, "Whoa, okay, like, let me remember how to shortboard," but still just caught a ton of fun waves and, yeah, had an absolute blast, was super sore, and, of course, all of things sunburnt dead by the end of the trip. It wasn't necessarily, like, a relaxing trip because I would wake up with, like, 6 hours of sleep just, like, so excited to go surfing, but, yeah, so much fun, and the girls I went with were awesome, and, yeah, we had a great time.
Awesome. Yeah, I have never been to Saladita, but we do retreats there and
Nice.
have heard a lot about it for sure. But it seems like that town has changed a ton. Like was that the first time you'd been there or could you compare it to the past?
Yeah, actually, it was the second time. We're building property just south of Zihuatanejo. We're actually gonna go again this weekend. I think I'm gonna go to Saladita and like we're actually bringing our parents down there. And I'm like, Mom, want to go on a little surf trip day? I miss it, but yeah, we visited. I think it was maybe 2021. Yeah, just did a day trip there and it's definitely developed quite a bit. Like there's a lot more happening there. Yeah, just like lots more restaurants, it feels like right on the beach. So yeah, I know it's awesome. I definitely am excited to go back. It's a great little town.
So you went in 2021 and bought property on that trip?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or within that year. Yeah, it's a property further. It's like 45 minutes south of Zihuatanejo. It's in a development called Musa. Um, so yeah, not there's a bit of surf right there, but it's pretty exposed beach break. So usually when we end up going, it's just massive. But this trip it looks like it'll be cute, like 2 to 4. So it'll be
Nice.
nice to get to surf. But yeah, Playa Linda is usually where we end up going if we are gonna like drive a little bit to surf. It's just closer.
Yeah. And are you going to build a house or do you have plans?
Yeah, yeah, it's in progress right now. So it's probably gonna be done in September.
That's exciting.
Yeah, yeah, we're super
A-
excited. It'll be
And
fun.
is the job that you do, are you able to do it remotely? Like, do you have plans
Mhm,
to spend more time down there?
Yeah, that's the plan right now. Yeah, I mean, we're basically like right now thinking maybe we'll be down there for a few months at a time. It kind of just depends on how it plays out. There's also like kind of they're building out more of a community, so it'll be interesting to see like how that all plays out there. But yeah, from a work standpoint, like I've always been on Zoom, so I can see people pretty much wherever. I also will have an office space, so if I eventually want to see people in person, I'll be able to do that down there. Just have to figure out the legality of like practicing in Mexico. But honestly, if I'm not a health coach, just want to make that clear. But like if I put myself under the health coaching category, then I like, have a lot more flexibility for who I can support. So yeah, that's the plan right now. We just have to figure out how we're going to transport all of our animals.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, what will you do if you go decide to go for like a few months? Like, will you bring them all or just get like a
Yeah,
house sitter?
we'll bring them. Yeah. If
Yeah.
it's a few months, we'll bring them. If it's like a month, then we'll probably leave them here. But yeah, I think we'll definitely try it at some point. And it's honestly like it's definitely a drive for sure. Like we would drive them. We wouldn't fly them. But yeah,
You would
I mean,
drive to from San Diego to Salita with the rabbit and like the cats. What kind of vehicle are you gonna transport this farm in?
we actually have tried it before because we brought everyone up. My mom, bless her heart, she has taken care of our animals a couple of times. It was just LA. So it was like a little trial run in the Jeep that we have. And like everyone fit. It was really cute. And like the cats just ended up like walking around the car. Honestly, the rabbit is the hardest one because they need to eat like every 2 hours. Otherwise their gut will shut down. And so anyway, she's a little bit more challenging. But yeah, that would be that's gonna be an adventure whenever we decide to do that, is bringing everyone down.
Yeah, interesting because so I have a dog and a cat, and I have a house like 3 hours apart in Costa Rica, and so it I always make the calculation like if we're going for at least a week, then we'll bring them, and just the one cat it's like trying to get him into the car. Like he hates the carrier. So like I just
Yeah.
like pick him up and like go and like have everybody else loaded in the car and the windows up and the AC on. And I like go and like get him in the car and he like he meows for like 10 minutes and then he chills. But
Yeah.
it's like 3 hours is long enough that like, he shows up very thirsty and he
Yeah.
has had he has peed in the car before, but no, most of the time he doesn't. But to think
Mhm.
about driving, like how long of a drive would it be from San Diego to Saludita? That's like
Oh
multiple
god.
days, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely like a few day trip. Yeah, we were calculating it from Seattle. It's definitely better from Seattle. Yeah, I think it's at least like a few days. So yeah, we would need to do like makeshift litter box. Like our boys
In the
are
car.
yeah, or something. I have no idea. I'm really curious because like actually, they're mostly boys. There's one our rabbit is the only girly that we have, but, like, they're pretty well adjusted, the cats, and they're pretty confident, like, we can kinda throw them into different environments. They will meow for a little bit, but I don't know, they chill out, same thing, like, after, like, 10 minutes or so, I don't know, it'll
Yeah, it
be
just
an
seems like the challenge is like the pit stops seems like the challenge. It's like
yeah,
once you're rolling, then you roll, but like you got to
yeah,
stop. Everybody, humans and pets, need to get out and stretch their legs,
mhm,
and that
yeah,
seems like the hardest thing of keeping the cats like with you. The dog you can put on the leash and to
right,
go for a walk and do their business, but
yeah,
that
we
it
need to
seems like
do
there's
a
some work
trial.
needed on that plan.
Oh, definitely, definitely, yeah. We're just, like, we're pushing it out a little bit, we're like, "We'll figure it out when we get to that point."
Awesome. All right. Well, I guess you've kind of already said, but let's just like sum it up. If you were the best case is individualized experience and doing the testing and finding out what works for you. But
Mhm,
for somebody that just wants to think about general recommendations, like let's say you're talking to me, a almost 46-year-old woman with husband and kids that lives in a place where I don't have great access to high quality fruits and vegetables. We're looking at like tomatoes, cucumber, avocados sometimes, onions. The tropical fruits are good, mango, papaya, pineapple, but that's about it. What's your recommendation?
I think first just with that, and then I have other ideas about like supplementing and making sure you're getting what you need. But a model that I recommend people trying to follow about 80% of the time is like our version of the balance plate, which is aiming to get about half your plate vegetables, even if it's like lower variety. Still getting that amount of fiber, and the volume can increase just your intake of those different nutrients called phytonutrients and the different colors in the vegetables especially, and then aiming for about quarter plate protein, quarter plate carbs. So, and again, that could be, I know it's probably like a mix of things like tortillas, potatoes, fruit. Carbohydrates would be, those three things, about quarter of your plate. That kind of balance, and then lastly, healthy fat. So your avocado, olive oil, avocado oil, like depending on the fats that you're using or proteins that you have access to, that could count as healthy fat too. That kind of balance is pretty solid, and so even just getting that within what you have access to is going to do your body really, really good. Um, so that would be my recommendation without, like, adding anything in, is trying to focus on that. And by the way, half your plate would be, like, non-starchy veggies, again, like the onion, cucumber, tomato, if you have any access to, like, greens or things like that, that would be that. And then I would say, again, if it's possible to grow anything, that could be maybe something to consider. It just depends on how easy or hard it is to grow in that climate. But then I would also say, and again, without knowing testing, but even just like having a fairly personalized multivitamin, or maybe like again a greens powder that we talked about, just for a little extra something. Maybe a probiotic, right? Like some foundational supplements I think could be helpful too. That balance with both the supplements and the foundations and the plate is also really helpful for hormone balancing, digestive health. So those would be kind of my initial recommendations.
Awesome. That and the digestive enzymes, and you're good to go.
Yes, and the enzymes. Yeah, or some bitters. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, it's interesting to think about. And yeah, I look forward to learning more. If people are inspired and like what you have to say and want to reach out to you, want to tell us again what your business is called and the best way to find you?
Yeah, so it's sea and spruce, sea like ocean, spruce like spruce tree nutrition. On social media, posts quite a bit on Instagram. You can also find us at our website, seaandsprucenutrition.com. I do have free consults, so if anyone's curious about exploring work together, I'm happy to just share information and educate and kind of point you in the right direction. So yeah, that's us.
Epic. Well, thank you so much and good luck with your
Yeah,
projects. I'll definitely give you a
thank
follow
you.
and look forward to keeping in the loop as your dream grows.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this was fun. Thanks for having me.